Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody back. So what, if I was in a classroom, I would wait and wait. What they say, there's enough wait time for the commission to have everybody's attention. So I say good afternoon and welcome back to day 4 or workshop 4. Excited about what this evening holds and all the different materials and things that we're going to go over and just what's going to happen at the end. So I'm going to get out of the way because I know that we have a lot to do. And yesterday, we had an actual decision, but I also know that today, there's one board meeting recommendation that the board actually passed.
Thank you, Willie. Yeah, today is our creative deadline is looming. At 8 o'clock, we have this group has a creative deadline. And we are going to be making a presentation. And when I say we, I mean us. And I'm going to be looking for volunteers in the next 2 hours to help us make a presentation. People who would like to represent this group to make that presentation. At 7 o'clock, a small group, 6 to 8 people, typically we like to have, will be meeting with us, probably me, to go over the presentation so that we make a good presentation as a group of 100, and you'll be in service to the task force. So I look forward to that. I will be asking people for the next couple hours to join or ask for volunteers. So we have our creative deadline coming. First thing I want to do is congratulate you for your work yesterday and last night. It was really amazing, and it kept us up all night.
Not quite all night.
It was so good. It kept me up all night. Yeah, extraordinary work. So it was very inspiring, all of it. And I think it really helped us create a synthesis exercise that we're really dying to share with you. A few things about process. We came into this with a lot of questions, right? And I think a lot of us still have questions. Yesterday was about diverging and asking more and more questions. Today is about converging. So coming together as a team. So we make a recommendation tonight, and the thing about that recommendation, we are here. This process, goes to here, and high school transformation goes through a referendum, and a referendum needs community support, and all of you are ambassadors for that process. So tonight we leave here as a unified team, and you're the ambassadors for this. That's really critical to get the transformation we're looking for. It's really critical in the whole process. So we are here. There's a long way to go to here, and there's more work to be done kind of in the middle here, right? So you're making a recommendation, and tonight, and you're making a presentation. You're going through the information that you went through. You're going to share the information. And I'll go through it quickly because typically it's easier to use the PowerPoints we've been using so that we're not recreating a lot of stuff, but we can change it and do whatever your team wants to do. But the point I want to make, what was the point I want to make? Oh, yeah, now I remember. There's a couple of board events coming up on December 10th and December 18th. December 10th is a board workshop. Okay, tonight they are going to be here, sitting as a board in chairs, and you'll be presenting to them, and also to the rest of us. And it gives them an opportunity to ask questions, share some thoughts, etc., and have a dialogue. So tonight's about a dialogue. The workshop on the 10th is about more dialogue and questions. They might have some questions, right? They might ask us for more information. And then the 18th is the formal board meeting. And I think that's an action where they will act on the recommendation. Any questions about that process? Did I get that right? I think that's about that. Yeah. Okay? Should we move on? The community workshop will continue to work. And then there's another board approval moment at the end of February, which will recommend a referendum amount. So there's a lot of work to be done in terms of assessing the appetite the community might have for bond, fine-tuning the design to fit perceived appetites by the community, etc. There'll be surveys, there'll be more of that happening. We're sort of taking it one step at a time. But that continues on as well. Okay, big picture process, right? First one is visioning, next one is setting priorities, diverging our choices, and converging. If you want 4 words to describe this process, that's it. Our agenda tonight, we're going to take some reflections again. Again, that is part of our process to try to understand. You've had a night to sleep on it. Your thoughts on what happened yesterday. We'll start with that. We're going to do some criteria setting before we go into the presentation. We're going to offer some criteria which we believe you're interested in judging the design work on. And then we would like you to comment on that, add to it or take away, because we have to assess our design in some way. So we'll do that together. Then we'll do our synthesis presentation, and then we'll restructure a feedback loop organic tables. So first we have you talking in small groups and then in whole groups. Okay? Then we'll have an assessment moment. And right about here will be, at 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. We need to be starting our presentation. It gets a little loose, kind of right in here. So I think you felt like maybe, has this been fairly structured, where you're like always on point and activities? Heading up to 8, like the hour before 8 might feel a little bit loose, and that's okay. Hopefully you're okay with that. Kind of a fun time. And then showtime at 8. So we have, a busy night. So, time for reflections on the work you did yesterday. There was a nice article in the paper, I noticed. I read it at 3:30 in the morning. Thanks for that.
He forwarded it to me at that time too. I didn't read it.
I did. Got it about it. Anyway, any reflections on your work yesterday? How did it feel to be working? It's one of the things we said at the beginning was it's time for action, right? There's been enough talk. We've been talking about high school transformations since 2004, I believe. So, and that came up in, remember the highest hopes? Time to do something. So, anyhow. And David, maybe, are you the mic man? Or Judy?
I'm no good at this.
We're sort of used to this role.
David, there's a
Comment? Yeah.
see, it wasn't just me.
Well, it's not just you. There we go.
We have time.
had a couple of different reflections last night after I left. I was surprised. Well, the first one was that I was surprised at the amount of willingness to buy houses in the current tech neighborhood. I didn't anticipate seeing that. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying I was really surprised to see that. Because I'm kind of new to the whole high school world as a parent, I was surprised to see the amount of space dedicated to the athletic fields. And only because of inexperience, I'm just curious, is the use of those kinds of spaces really prevalent? Because I just have no, I don't have a context in which to say. Some of you have way more context than I do. So the last thing on my list was something that's been on my mind for about a week or so, and that is that there seems to be little, if any, discussion about the repurposing of the current tech in case we build a new tech somewhere else. I haven't really heard anybody talking about that or anything other than the rumors that have been very prevalent for multiple years about that space going away.
I just have a little comment about repurposing because I've had this conversation with a couple people already. This summer we lost Roosevelt School and we lost the ECFE program. It went to St. Joe and is temporarily housed there right now. We could bring that back and put that at Tech. We could have the district welcome center at Tech. We can move the district administrative offices to Tech. It can still be a central point. And I would argue that preschool children use our public library to a greater extent than our high school kids. And if you've ever been there on a Tuesday or Wednesday morning, you know what I'm talking about.
Just a personal comment. I actually love the combination of having a district office and early learners together, so it keeps them with their eyes on
I was very impressed how it came together last night and some of the presentations and the options that seem doable and taking into different constraints and parameters as far as impact on housing, et cetera, and trying to minimize some of those. Last week when we talked about, or a few sessions back, the ideal situations, I guess I've never been one for that type of dreamy stuff and kind of grounded in reality and know that we got constraints such as budgets and that stuff wouldn't work, but I like how it came together last night.
Wait until I'm on one side.
Well, I would like to see Tech High School repurposed for something with the school district, say the early childhood and the administrative offices. I am concerned that the school district wouldn't see that as a financially lucrative option. Sounds like Tech High School is a bear to maintain, to heat, that would be quite expensive, and that they would want to choose something that would be less of a monthly cost for them than a yearly cost.
All these points are kind of raising my issue, which is more, I don't feel able to make a recommendation tonight. And my concern is really with, I felt we were promised at the beginning that last night we would be given what we needed to make a decision, and we could then sleep on it. I'm completely in favor of that, and reflect on it, and then we would feel much more prepared today. And so I'm hearing contextual things here, right? And remember, the very first night we created a Wordle which had community and sustainability as its number one. Did we ever use that information? Normally what you would do is take a kind of inventory of your assets in all the sites, right? I feel like I don't know what the assets are and what the conditions and constraints are in the various sites. I would like to, before I make a decision, I'd like to know how much does that busing cost, right? These are really, that could be a lot. What if the cost of gas goes up again, right? What about infrastructure costs? Those are all, really major things and long term, right? Or I thought the whole point of this too was to build a picture of District 742 as a whole, and I'm really interested in these ideas, right? These other repurposing ideas. And the other question I have is, when you, again, people ask about, so what do you mean by community connections? Well, what I'm thinking about most specifically is right near Tech High, we have the Mogadishu Cafe, where there's teens, and we have a new mosque coming in, okay? So it looks to me like we have some, we have 10% of our St. Cloud's population is from Somalia, and this is a really significant population, and I just feel like that, can anyone speak to Somali community considerations in this? I mean, we just don't know, right? So I just feel like I'm not ready to make a big picture recommendation, even though I find all these options, well, you know, this is designed to be an exciting process.
Thank you. And you don't have to make a decision alone. The whole group is making a recommendation. Thank you for that, sharing that.
Really, I think I could springboard off that just a little bit, because my consideration, which I felt was missing, we started talking about money, and we started talking about cash, and we started talking about dollar figures. And one of the things that I'm kind of trained to do is to talk in terms of value instead of just cash value. And one of the things that I don't hear at all with this is the value to the community as that lives around the St. George neighborhood and in this core neighborhood. Schools are expensive, and we keep talking about, you know, how much it's going to cost. But one of the things that we have to keep in mind is we're not a really wealthy town. I mean, maybe people in here are doing okay, but there's a huge population that we have in St. Cloud that is underrepresented here, because we had to commit 4 days that started at 4 during work time, and one of them during the day itself, which is really a stress. And there are a lot of people who couldn't do that and aren't a part of this at all. And we really have to think about the value. These are the people, if the school were to move, would have the hardest burden in going and being in sports or in anything, right? It's hard to bring your kids to all these things as it is. We haven't talked about walkability or any of these things that are direct community aspects.
Another perspective.
I was just reflecting on the fact that I'm grateful for this process. I think the district leadership and the Board of Education have given us a gift with this process. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the community to be able to be giving feedback like this, so I just wanted to thank the leadership team for the gift of this process. And I also appreciate how what we're doing here rolls up into the overall district strategic plan. There was a very large group of people last year that worked on a strategic plan for the district and all through this past year, and I really appreciate how all of this work is perfectly aligned with that strategic plan. I think it's very important.
Thank you. One of the goals of the process, to align with that.
I just wanted to make the comment. I hear a lot of people making the comments about the core neighborhood in the Lake George area where Tech is now, and wanting to, you know, really keep the school in that area. But I would say that 50+% of our students actually come from outside that area: St. Augusta, Luxembourg, Clear Lake, Clearwater. And I think a more centrally located school makes a lot more sense for our high school community, because right now Tech is at the very north end of that.
I came into this with really feeling we needed a new school, but when I was on the committee of repurposing Tech, and it just really opened my eyes when we took the footprint of Alec and put it with Tech, and it was about the same. So that got me thinking, oh, maybe it's both, but I think money is a big issue that we need to know.
Maybe something possible.
Thank you.
One of the things that I expected, I guess, to see more of is a different aspect of design, and that is curriculum design. We haven't talked very much about what kind of learning will happen in these new or refurbished schools. Is it differentiated staffing? Is it academies? Is it school within a school? All of those different things would lend themselves to or demand a different kind of building design. So, and that kind of curriculum design has to be done by professionals, the staff, the administration, and it takes time. And it seems a little backwards to make a building and then force something into it.
Yeah, you guys are doing that on purpose.
To build a little bit on what Dr. Kelsey had to say there too, I guess my concern, twofold as a former principal and a building person and a teacher and so forth. I think we've had a lot of discussion about the decision about whether we should be downtown or outside of town. I feel pretty good about the discussion that we've had on those issues, and I hope that we can come to a conclusion there. But I would agree with Ken that we need to, it's my strong recommendation that before we make a decision about what should go into a tech or a follow, that we have strong and thoughtful building personnel have a discussion about what they need in the school too.
Yeah. If I may add, we heard a presentation on teaching and learning, curriculum instruction, and the changes and the initiatives that are underway, and that strategic plan, and all of those initiatives that will be aligning our work with. And so as you look at it, watch for how the design choices might allow that. Typically, yes, sometimes the teaching and learning should come first. Oftentimes a building project helps it along or helps support it. Oftentimes buildings can, Winston Churchill said, we design our buildings and thereafter they design us. So
we follow up.
Yeah.
Comment on that. I guess I was involved with a building project in another town, and they didn't include the staff until after the building was started, and it caused some major changes in the plan, which are costly to do those types of things. So
that's why you're all here.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
From the comments so far, it sounds like we need a little bit of reassurance that the process that we're doing is the right thing and that we're going to come to some type of recommendation. So my question for you is, can you reflect on the processes that you've been involved at other schools like Alexandria and Wyoming and things like that, that would help reassure us that so far the steps we have taken are in line with what you've seen and the additional steps, and just some more reassurance that we're not all worried that this process is not going to conclude with what we were expecting.
Right. Okay. As far as the processes that we've been involved in and led over the last 15 years, we've never had a group not make a recommendation or come to closure on something. For me, it's sort of outside of it's not something I feel like that's a brilliant belief. It's not something I believe. I believe you're going to come together and make a great recommendation. The team in Alex was 100 people. They were probably more stuck in a place than you are, or you feel you are. I don't even know if you feel like you're stuck. But it's really fun to get unstuck together. It really is, and to start moving forward, because the energy of being stuck is what sticks you. So with any process, there are always people who care deeply, and if you didn't care deeply, you wouldn't be here. And we need to care deeply. We need to care deeply about your community for this to be great, and for you to make a great recommendation. and for you to come together, and which I have full faith you will. But every process we've led gets to a place like this. But we have a creative deadline. We've been hired to provide a recommendation and a cost estimate for new tack on the new site and new tack on, or a transformed tack on the existing site. And we take that very seriously. And we recommend to the district that we do it with a group of, a community group of diverse stakeholders with as many different opinions and perspectives as possible. And we totally didn't get it. So thank you. I'm totally optimistic that this is going to be a great evening. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just hoping that you would shed some light to the group.
Okay, thank you. Did the group, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was wondering, when was the one high school thrown out? I mean, when was the decision made not to have one?
Well, no. That is before my time.
Oh.
That is, we interviewed for this.
Okay.
We interviewed for, and we actually said we need to broaden the discussion to include the whole community and to include the high school solution. And we understood the one high school is not a discussion. I said that at the first meeting, right?
Yeah.
Anybody here? And then you all said no.
Maybe I wasn't.
Well, you paid attention. If you don't mind. Over here.
If I can speak from the perspective of being a student in Minneapolis in the early 70s, when they started to think about closing schools. And so I went from Horseman Elementary to Corcoran Elementary because that was a little bit newer school. Then I went back to Wilder Elementary that was built on that location. And then I went to, by the time I was in high school, I was at Central High School, which was like tech, which I felt was a community school, which I think probably 70% or so of the students at Minneapolis Central were in the neighborhood, or maybe even higher, and then people came into there. And then they tore down that school. So my first consideration was, if you get rid of tech, are you going to destroy a neighborhood? In the case of Minneapolis Central, I feel they really dismantled the neighborhood. I don't get the same feeling of tech if tech is not actually at that spot. Because if you're 50%, and I appreciate it from my perspective. And from what I'm seeing though, I can see the value of a new facility elsewhere because of the space around it, and my view as inner city youth, going to see something that was outside of my neighborhood really opening my eyes. Man, what else is out there? Now I may even be more inspired. And that's just me, a kid coming from Minneapolis, what I saw there, what I can see as a potential and the opportunity that I can see here.
Interesting.
Other
perspectives to share.
So, and I enjoyed all the presentations yesterday, and the idea of a new school in a new location is amazing. We can start from scratch, build whatever we want. But again, if we go back to the Wordle that we did that first time, it's community, and there was no community out there. I mean, there was none, as far as I could tell. And there's a lot of infrastructure that would have to be brought out to either of those places to make a community around there. If tech is remodeled in place, then you already have a neighborhood that supports it. I know for a fact at least 10 homeowners that surround Clark Field moved there on purpose to see high school football games and are waiting for Clark Field to be remodeled so that they can come back. I live in this neighborhood so that I moved here to this neighborhood so that my kids walk to school. And they wouldn't be able to do half the stuff they do because for 6 years we only had one car and it was parked out at St. John's University. And so if they couldn't walk to school, they couldn't do those activities. So tech being in that neighborhood and being a real anchor in that neighborhood. We've worked with tech, swimming lessons. I mean, the list goes on and on. 3 weeks ago, I had 2 students knock on my door that were part of the Oklahoma play, encouraging me to come and handing me a $1 off coupon if I showed up. And they had gone through the entire neighborhood to invite us all. It's just, tech truly is a portion of the core. We feel the history. It's not just the building, it's also the students inside. It's the staff inside, it's the facility itself. It's not just the building. And should that go away, we would be very sad. But part of the concern for the Lake George neighborhood is if tech were to go away, what would happen to the building? There's a lot of promises of repurposing, fine. If you don't want to repurpose it, what would happen to it? What would be brought into our neighborhood? We've just had a problem with the Garfield School when they tried to change the purpose for that from school or church to allow a larger housing unit to come in, that we would have had no control over what went in there. We, as a neighborhood, are very concerned with what tech would be repurposed at, and if we could keep, the zoning the way it is, or if that would be just changed, and what that would bring, because that, we don't want, we want to be able to control what comes in.
So any solution that moves tech would require a very thoughtful, deliberate discussion about it.
Because the impact on the neighborhood would be enormous.
Absolutely. We might have a discussion about that.
Oh, I just wanted to say at some point Apollo was out in the country and then the community built up around it. So we have something similar here too.
I'm on.
And just the idea that, Alexandria is expecting their community to grow a host of high school and it's an intentional plan of growth.
I've listened very carefully too to a lot of people who live around the school and stuff and who have a lot of emotional. I went to Tech as a student. My kids go to school there. I work there. I'm on the alumni board. I bleed orange as much as anybody in this room. But I'm telling you that school, from working there, from going to school there and seeing my kids in there, it's a bit smothering to what could be done with where our kids could go. And I'm speaking, I just want it to be heard too, that I'm ready for a new building, I'm ready for something new.
We hear a lot about tech community, and it's important to that one neighborhood, that we have a big building there. And it bothers me that no one said Apollo's got a community. I teach here, I went to school here. There's no houses around here. Okay, the kids that walk here have to come across Highway 15. Everybody else is driven here. But it's still a really good community. We still have the people come to our plays. They still drive into our sporting events. We have facilities all around that we can practice all summer here. Our athletic kids walk to the building right outside the door. They've got stuff that they can do. We have a great community here at Apollo without having houses right around it, right? And so when you say that, I get this community thing too, I mean, I get that. And I was opposed to tech being built there again until I saw the presentation. I'd be open to whatever. But don't think that if tech moves somewhere else, that all of a sudden tech no longer has a community. Because like you said, it's not the building, it's what happens inside the building. And what goes on around the outside, that doesn't make the school community. It's the school community will be there no matter where the building is. Okay, we have it here. So if you want to see a school that doesn't have houses around it with a great community, this Apollo has that.
I would add that just people create community, not buildings. People create that. And it's very intentional to create community.
I'm going to be very quick because I know we're running out of time, but I just want to say that you're looking at a person who fears change. I'm very opposed to change, and let me tell you, if any of you in this room know me, hockey is my life. And the National Hockey Center is my home on St. Cloud State campus. That building has been a constant in my life forever, and they remodeled it recently. And it broke my heart. I sat outside that building quite literally and cried. I was so opposed to this. And this side, I see some of you smiling, but I am dead serious about this. This broke my heart. I was so torn up over this.
And once that new facade went up and the new facilities went in, and I saw how many people were coming to St. Cloud State to that hockey team because of recruiting, because this facility was now a good facility, because things were changing, it was different for me and it was hard for me to accept. But when I saw the final result and I saw it come together and it wasn't what I wanted, and never in my life did I think I would be okay with it. But last year I left that building with a smile on my face and it felt once again like home to me. And so keep an open mind is all I would say, because even though we love tech and I look at that facade and I don't go there and I don't have a connection there, I'm Apollo and Apollo feels like family to me, and I am so happy here. Apollo feels like a great place for me. But I see tech and I respect its history and I love what they do there and I love the facade. But also I think of all the students inside. And I think of some of the comments that I received when I was compiling those that said, please give us a new school. They were begging for this. Please give us a new school. And I know not all of the students feel that way, but that comment stood out to me. But I just think that sometimes it can be a limiting belief that change is a bad thing. And when I look up now at the new facade of the National Hockey Center, that's my home now. And I still love that place and I go there. And no matter what it looks like, it's what's inside. Just like you said, what's inside that's going to mean a lot to me and that is going to provide my home for the rest of my life, no matter what rink I go to. So, open-mindedness is what I would say.
Thank you. Well spoken. We'll be talking to you.
I've loved this whole process.
We're going to keep it to about 3 or 4 more comments.
Okay.
Wait, she says she loves the process. Don't stop.
I'm just, we could go probably till 8, but thank you.
But this is really scaring me. I feel like we've been working so well together and now we are starting to alienate each other. I understood community as the St. Cloud community. And now I hear Apollo community and the tech neighborhood, not even the school, the neighborhood, and then anything outside of that. Now, I could jump on that bandwagon too and say I live about a mile from one of the South Side things. That's my community. I want that school in my community. I don't care about Lake George community. I want that school in my community. I don't want to go down that road. I mean, that's what I am hearing. I thought it was what was best for the community. And I don't want to say that the businesses aren't going to help tech if it's not right downtown. I don't think that that's what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When I went home last night, I went home with a dream of bigger. I mean, I kept saying, oh, there's so much we can do. Let's not stop at high school. Let's go to the junior high. Let's go to the elementary. Let's keep building because there's so much potential and so much new stuff. And I agree. What is community? I mean, you think of Sauk Rapids. They had that tough decision. But look at the housing development that's out there. They've got wonderful multi-income level housing out there. And it's working for them. So let's get on the bandwagon together and build a community.
Couple more perspectives.
One thing that has, and it's looking far into the future, but some of the talk is that this community is growing, the population is growing. And the carrying capacity of the average high school, at what point will we be reaching a threshold where we're looking at 3 high schools? That's not really all that far down the road. So that has to be considered as well, although not today. The other thing is to comment on the comments about community and the Lake George neighborhood. That seems to be, it gets twisted into that, don't mess with my neighborhood because of whatever. And I don't really see it as so much that. Yes, there will be a direct impact more than likely on the Lake George neighborhood. There's already 80% rental east of 9th Avenue with all the students. And it used to be purely students. Now it's not students. It's all demographics. And they're starting to begin to have difficulty there. That is beginning to encroach its way westward from 9th Avenue. You remove that, where's the attraction to any young family? There's not a reason to move into an inner city area. Now that aside, once again, the connection to SCSU, the opportunity for young students to get a PSEO education that's only 6 blocks away. Our daughter got 2 years of college education because she could get there. Now, providing her with transportation and all that, it would be way too expensive for a lot of people. Opportunities go away. There is a connection to the downtown and to the library. You know, add to those things. And then also the fact that, you know, I want a new school, I want a new school. Yeah, regardless of what happens here, there's going to be a new school. I mean, it's going to be the external shell of tech, perhaps. But it's going to be a new school, whether it doesn't. So, anyway, just keeping those things in perspective.
Can I just add on a comment that something I was expecting to see last night and didn't see, and this, you'll see this in the common ground, is like what is valued there, the Lake George and the park and the community, that whole thing. I expected to see, you know, the high school utilizing that or somebody, but you all stayed away from that, and that's like the sacred ground in the community. So that's a very special piece that, you know, does everybody here feel like that park is really sacred and the heart of something? Yeah. So that's every bit as important as, you know, that seems to be a really important, that with the green space, it's this green space for the community. And I thought somebody would put a new high school on that. For sure. Right? Well, it's logical. But nobody did, and you all said, ooh. So that tells me that that's sacred ground. And that's sacred green space of the community. And it's untouchable. I thought that was cool. That was cool. So that's important. That's an important piece. That's in the common ground. I just previewed something important. I've been trying to.
I know you've been trying to build their
model there.
Yes.
I'm talking to
they design everything.
I was, right? What about here? I saw that.
Last one?
Yeah.
One more?
Well, that's you, the red X.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to be first and last, but I heard a couple people say something.
Yeah, I can't hear this.
I heard a couple of people say something that triggered a reminder. I grew up in Fargo, and approximately 50 years ago, our tech high school, which was called Central, burned to the ground in the middle of the school year. And so it didn't impact me because I was too young. But my brother was a high school student who ended up in a split schedule at the other high school on the north side of town. Well, Fargo North. While the city built an enlarged replica of Fargo North on the south side of town in the middle of a wheat field. And there was nothing there. And even when I became a high school student, other than just a few housing developments on two sides of the school, there was nothing there other than, you know, the wheat fields on the opposite side. And the last time I was in Fargo a few years ago, when I went to go visit the high school, I couldn't find it.
Yeah. Long-term perspective. Is that a good one to end on?
Yeah, sure it is.
One more. One more. We have plenty of time. But it's important. It's important.
I just wanted to say that when we began that first night, my highest hope was that this process is about the kids, and I'm not, you know, I think about my 4th grade daughter and how lucky she is that each one of you guys, everybody in this room cares enough to be in this room and be part of this process. So thank you for your time. The school, wherever it is, will be richer for the diversity that's been expressed here tonight. So I just want to reiterate that we're here about the kids. And unfortunately, as really impressed as I am about the high school students that are participating in the process, not those kids, the kids that are coming up and will be able to be in this building wherever it is. And then also, we've covered this ground a little bit already, but the fact that the building, again, wherever it is, or whatever it looks like, is the tool for these kids and these teachers that are, that impact the daily lives of these students, and yeah, anyway, that we're here about the kids, we're here about the teachers, the staff, and making a tool that they can embrace and
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Would our students like to stand up and point at people?
Little microphone?
It's over here.
Can we move on, or? Yeah. All right. I don't know if we have to review. And so I'm just going to show a series of slides, and what I want you to do is think about it in terms of a presentation that you're making to a school board or to a community group, right? So these are the slides we might use, including, you know, maybe this is number one, because I love this slide. This is great. And yes, it is about community, and it is about sustainability and being inclusive. It's about making a decision, and it is about excellence and students and quality and being open-minded and assets and technology. It's about all of that. And I heard a lot of that discussion all through this process. So thank you for that. This is the mission. This is the district's mission, and they're very serious about it. And I think you're very serious about it. And this came out of the strategic plan. And I think any presentation to the school board should start with that. Right? That's also number one. And the core values. You know, they took a look at their core values when they agreed to go through this process, instead of hiring us just to put some prices on things. Right? We don't have any idea what to price. Right? You're helping us define what we're pricing. We have no idea. So they're taking this seriously, right? And we've said, let's work with what your values are. And we need a community team, different perspectives to do this. So align with that. And then the parameters, the design parameters that we're working under. You know, I think we have to share that. You know, we can't bring a solution that doesn't align with these. So everything you're going to see tonight, we believe is going to align with these, what we share with you later. And the co-creative ground rules, maybe we can skip this with the board. This is for our group process. But I think it helps, and I ask you to think about this again. These ground rules help us get to a place of coming together around kids. You know, this is not a competition. This is not a competition. Let me say that again. We are not competing with one another. We are collaborating with one another. We're not worried about who gets credit for what great idea. You guys came up with so many great ideas last night. I have no idea whose idea was what. You see how that works? I have no idea. I just know we have really creative community here. And a lot of stuff came out half-baked. Boy, right? Did you recognize that? Man. But you know what? There's brilliance in it. There's some stuff that really inspired us. You know, and we needed it. We had no idea before we saw what we did. We had no clue. None. And we had an amazing evening. So thank you for your half-baked offerings. And I'm not going to go over the creativity is risky. You may present that to the board if you like. It's kind of fun to do, but you can skip it for time, right? It's not a creative process. But hopefully you remember those rules and you can apply them. And then have fun, that kind of fun one, we'll skip that. Maybe not. You know, again, worrying about stuff is not going to help us get to a creative place. You know, we want to spend our time on what we can do something about. This team needs to work tonight on that yes, in that yes place. Okay? I'm going to ask you all to kind of let go and work on that yes place tonight. You know what the forces of change are. You know, they keep coming up all the time. You guys have tons of limiting beliefs, as everybody does, as I do, as we do. You added some, you know, and we just heard a bunch today, you know, just now on the reflections. Change is good, change is bad. What were the two we added?
These bottom two here.
Yeah.
We renovate tech won't be put to good use. And it's harder for the community to rally around one school because we have two high schools and there are other community options.
And, you know, tonight you're going to make a recommendation. One of those recommendations might have to have some work done tonight on what good use is. You know, because you have two options. It's pretty clear you have two really good options that you're going to look at tonight. Let's get that. Let's get that. This.
You're not working. You're not working.
Mic's on. I'll talk loud, I guess. Yeah, it's not working. How about the other mic?
John is behind you on the table, up against the.
I didn't mean to imply you weren't working.
Yes, you did. How I take it is none of your business. Just kidding. So, shared vision, right? It's really good. Take a little moment to look at it and just read it individually. We're not going to read it aloud tonight. It's an amazing shared vision. Let this help us tonight. And I think each and every one of you get this. I think each and every one of you have bought into this as a shared vision. I truly think this is a shared vision. Yeah, we heard a great presentation on teaching and learning. It was amazing, and it's on the website. These are some of the bullet points on that. So, you know, right? We need to create flexible, adaptable environments that support a variety of learning styles. We want our learners to feel safe and have a sense of community. We need to create a space for community within the school and for students in the community. So look for that in the design solutions. We want our learners to be competitive. We need to create a world-class education that supports both college and career readiness. It's not one choice anymore. We want our learners to be equitably connected to resources. We need a technology-rich environment that promotes learning anytime, any place. And yeah, technology might feel a little overwhelming at times. Many of you have said that, but that's not negotiable, right? We have to design a technology-rich environment for the high school learners of St. Cloud. We want our learners to have hands-on relevant learning experiences. This means we need to support career technical, business, and STEAM education through appropriate partnerships and space. We're serious about that. As a design team, we have to figure that out. That has a spatial impact. All of this is very impactful of facilities. We want our learners to understand that learning is integrated and not discipline specific. You know, several of you had design options that were discipline specific at the high schools last night, right? You had departments in little boxes. You know, that's not what this is about. This is about, we need to break down traditional silos between subjects and promote teacher collaboration. And someone said that takes staff development. That takes training. Yeah, it takes a lot. It takes years. Alex spent 3 years in staff development, just helping teachers understand how to work together. They hadn't worked together, ever, right? They're in a box with 30 kids for 9 months, and whoever comes out alive wins. Right? That's the mindset sometimes. A teacher told me that once. That's how her life felt.
And could I do anything about it? Yeah, buildings can help that. We will work to support partnerships with businesses and higher ed institutions in the St. Cloud area. We have to take that seriously. We want them to have opportunities throughout the community. We want learners to have a completed high school experience rich with opportunities beyond traditional academics. We need to support the arts, activities, and athletics. We want our learners to feel welcomed into our school. This means our schools need to address the physical needs of students by being safe, comfortable, and aesthetically welcoming with lots of daylight. This is from your curriculum, people. Teaching and learning, this is about process, but it has a facility implication. Just existing utilization, we can probably skip that for tonight. 2 existing sites, Tech High School, and you can see, you know, I think one of the big priorities was the Lake George, you know, community as an asset. Tech High School, the point about Tech, I think, is it's part of a broader community. And the famous parking diagram. Apollo, empathy walks. We reviewed this yesterday. So if you want to tell the board about the process, you can. Our closet organizers can describe that. Priorities, right? These were instructions to you last night. You know, with tech, you know, keep this. You know, wherever tech goes, that alignment with the community, that connection to the community, you know, has to be strong. And I'm not sure it showed up like physically last night. So let's think about how that might show up. And then misaligned, you know, the landlocked, no room to grow, outdated building, accessibility, learning areas are not logically organized. All of that stuff has to be addressed in either a new or remodeled tech. You know, it's not negotiable that we can't ignore that. This is not a status quo thing. So we have to fix that wherever we put it. We have to address that. Same thing with Apollo. You know, lots of things that are aligned. You know, I think there's a sense that there are, again, good bones. Lots can be done. The building doesn't have to be torn down, you know. But there's lots of misalignment inside. It's not, you know, it's not what you want. And I think you saw things in both Alex and Hopkins that could be applied here very easily because of the open nature of the existing building. And some numbers, and you went on some tours, and you visited Alex, and some of you saw some videos, and so you might describe to the board what those experiences were like or how you felt connected. This is Hopkins. And I think there are videos on the website too. Is there a, Tammy, is there a Hopkins video?
Yes. Yes, there is.
Has anybody seen that? Okay.
It's long.
I have yet to see it.
Yeah, it's over an hour.
It's not a virtual tour. It's
No music?
Yeah, it had to be edited and put up fast, so editing was difficult.
We're not doing reflections here. Oh, common ground. Are we ready? Anybody want to take a break? No, okay. This is probably not there, but so we're going to do the common ground. What did we? One of the things we do with. Oh yeah, we're going to do this now.
Yes, we're going to do this.
I remembered what was it. Okay.
Linear, John.
Yeah, linear. Yes, thank you. We should really have an agenda. Sorry. Yeah, so before we get into the common ground and synthesis presentation, we want to do a little piece on criteria, right? What is our design criteria? I said that before and lots of heads nodded. These are the parameters. We expected you to meet the parameters in your design, right? Or take a shot at it. We expect you this is a sort of underground criteria. Not underground, but it's, yeah. Thank you.
Givens, John.
Givens. So, but we thought we would put up some criteria that you could, after you see the presentations, we're going to ask you to do some assessment work, and we're going to hand this list out, and these are the categories or the criteria which we're offering to you right now. You can take a look at it, and if you wish to weigh in or add something, think something that isn't quite right, now is the time, because we're going to ask you to sort of score the design solutions on this criteria. Okay, like 1 to 5, and do it in tables. So we're going to ask you to do it in tables.
So the question is, did we miss anything, or is anything unclear? This really came out of all the conversations we've had together.
Flexibility, adaptability. There's a. Do I need to read it, or can you?
I'm pragmatic. I apologize for being robotic, but like for cost, I would rather have that see biggest bang for the buck.
Biggest bang for the buck, okay?
Or something like that.
We had like 42 different words in there.
Yeah.
Are these criteria weighted?
We have yet to weight them.
Several alluded to
Yeah. We haven't, because we haven't put that in your space yet, in terms of, I don't know, we could, let us consider that. For how do we weight these, because that's a whole process in and of itself. I think the purpose of the table work would be to work out what you think is the highest priority, and then let us know in this exercise.
I know that cost is on everybody's mind, but we're investing in our children, and we're investing in our future to grow St. Cloud area. So this first one, sometimes just want to take cost off the table and let us to dream big and let us to build our plan. Just like you build your dream home, you build it. And then once you build it, a little bit less expensive because you want to upgrade on the carpeting. And at that point then, the cost can come into play. Because if we're going to present an attractive model to the general public to vote on, the cost isn't going to be a factor.
What I would add is it needs to be on the criteria though, so I can't take it off. You need to be aware as a design team the cost implications of the design that you're going to see, and you're going to see some very complete numbers tonight. Okay, and it's part of it. It's part of it. You have to. We've heard a lot about fiscal responsibility from the community. If you present, you have to be aware of it as a design team. You can't ignore it.
Are you going to include the operating costs of the buildings or estimate?
Not right now.
Okay.
That will be on the plate later.
Okay.
And you can infer from what you see. You will be able to make some inference. Okay? Do you want to add operating costs on this list, though?
Yes.
Okay.
There's pretty significant differences.
Ongoing operating costs. Good, thank you. I would like to add that.
These are all great objective design criteria. And given the attachment to schools in this community, there's a subjective element of character that doesn't show up there.
specifically,
Is there a word you'd like to add, or is there something you'd like to add to this criteria?
Something that school has, you can create a box.
Right.
This is all.
So something that reflects the identity of the community? Aesthetics?
aesthetic potential, help me out.
Character, okay.
Other criteria we can add. We're gonna, yeah, 'cause when that comes, you're gonna get a piece of paper, but you can add the ones we add, and we'll put it up on the screen. Anything else?
I just wanted to clarify where you say community access to the community. Community doesn't only mean downtown. Community is multiple areas.
Right.
All of central Minnesota and beyond. So I just wanted to clarify where community does not equal downtown. Right.
People. David?
Are you working again?
I think so. All right, anybody else want to add some criteria? All right. Let's jump in to the common ground exercise. So we had we're going to start with the new tag at new site. Okay, then we're going to go to Apollo, and then we're going to go to transform tag on existing site. We'll go through this fairly quickly. So you saw, I think what you saw was two sites. One on 33rd Street site, the teams worked on that, and they worked on a design solution at the thing. So I'm just going to remind you, I'm not going to go over it. They did great jobs presenting it. And then there were four design solutions for a plan diagram of a new building, and they used the blocks. I need to ignore the because this was a new site. It was probably a little bit more easy to actually use blocks. So we had four really interesting creative solutions, and we're going to share the common ground that we found within that. So, and this is us assessing the work from our vantage point, right? And we're starting to weigh in now. And what we're trying to do is find what seems to be in common. And for us, it's what do you seem to be interested in as a design solution at a new site, a new building. So all groups accommodated the site program for fields and parking on the site. They easily accommodated the program. All groups created outdoor learning environments and connections to streams and the natural environment. Both groups at the 33rd Street site considered collaboration with the city. There was a city park proposed plans. There was a connection to the city and the community use, and there's a very interesting collaboration that can happen there. All groups entered a two-story common space adjacent to activity spaces that worked as pre-function. So there's a main entry, two-story space, and all of them had that same type. All groups had secure entries with administration adjacent to it. All groups had multi-zone or multi-story learning communities that could be organized in a number of different ways. Some of them were organized departmentally. I frown on that. That's just me. I don't think it aligns with where you're going in teaching and learning. Right? But some of them have interdisciplinary houses, some have career academies. At this point, we don't have to decide that, but they all had smaller learning communities that were kind of organized, and they were all multi-story. It was not a single-story solution, they were multi-story. And all groups zoned the activity in performing arts spaces, kind of in separate zones so they could be used at separate times. That was common ground. Apollo. Yes.
It's related to the parking, because I know there's not enough parking at Apollo for all the schools that have to drive. So are we assuming with the new space that there's going to be a mammoth parking lot?
They all met the parking requirements that were handed out in the program. So whatever that, I don't know what you would consider that.
800 spots was what was handed out.
Yeah. How many are here?
And Apollo is maybe 6.
5, 7, you're supposed to move it down.
And at that point, it's not, we're not judging, we're just saying that's the program. And that can all be shifted or changed, etc. For the purposes of this exercise. Apollo, these were the scenarios. And they look very similar from this perspective. And we go to this is where they start to differentiate. We have a variety of different proposals inside the building. Some of them really creative. And the common ground at Apollo was all groups enlarged the common space to serve students. All groups reorganized the building into public and classroom areas. All of them took a shot at reorganizing the building internally. All groups added gym and activity space at the theater and gym side, recognition of it being short. All groups opened up space throughout the plant. There were like pockets. Back to the mic. It's okay. Now, is this working?
Trying to go fast. Where was I? All groups opened up space throughout the plan. So pockets throughout to kind of create informal learning areas. All groups relocated the lockers closer to the learning space. Good move. All groups relocated the district. None of them recommended where they went. I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Because if that's, right, if they're out, where do they go? So that has to be a cost that we accommodate. All groups did some work with the playfields, kind of rezoned some of the playfields. All groups addressed security by relocating administration to entryways, and where entries were buried, kind of wildly, but they all reconfigured administration, the school administration, to have a safer relationship. And then 3 groups looked at 2-story additions, which we found interesting. But they added space up to get height. And 3 groups looked at expanding the kitchen, because it's really small and it doesn't work with the food service. So there were expansion there. That's the common ground then on Apollo that we noted. Tech. We got some really creative solutions at Tech, which we found quite inspiring. So we had 3 different solutions for the site. One group refused to do a site, and I'm not sure what that was about. But they had a great plan diagram. And then these were the plan diagrams. And you might look at that and you might think, well, that's kind of half-baked. But there's a lot of common ground in them. So let's take a look at that. Common ground tech. So this is transform tech, much of it new on existing site. All groups relocated media services to use the property. Sorry, it's gone. We don't know where it's gone. So we have to find spots for that too now. All groups incorporated a major addition for 21st century flexible learning. All of them. One group tore down the whole thing and said, let's rebuild it. That is not common ground though. All groups maintained Lake George as an asset. I spoke about that earlier. All groups demolished, all of you, demolished the 1965 wing. Gone, all of you, no question. Gone. All groups built over 13th Avenue, the current bus area. All of you expanded west. Remarkable. All groups reconfigured Clark Field in some way. Some referred to a plan that was existing, the alumni plan. Some reoriented, because it doesn't work with the track. You figured that out last night. So if you want a track, you got to rotate the field. But all of you futzed with Clark Field. All groups added parking to the north and west of the site. All groups. 3 groups kept the existing oldest building, pool, and gyms. Right, there's kind of this historic piece, and then the pool and gyms. 3 of you kept that. And 3 groups acquired properties along 14th Avenue. That's common ground. And probably the comment of the gentleman earlier about surprised at the appetite for that. Okay? That's common ground. But you seem to be interested in that. That's our starting point. Oh, we're not going to do that yet, are we? We're going to skip through that.
Is Scott up now?
Next.
John?
He's next. Oh, yes.
Do we want to take reflections?
Was there common ground for 33rd Street site and St. Augustine? Was there a pool common ground?
A pool? Yeah, I mean, because it was in the program. But you didn't weigh in on that. Quick reflect. Now, do you want? We had a common ground diagram for tech. Let's not do that yet. So we're going to do reflections on the common ground. I don't trust you. You are wrong and I'm right.
My preconceptions are correct and yours are wrong.
John, maybe we should do pizza because it's hot and it's back there now.
Pizza, we'll come back and then make a synthesis presentation.
It's all Jesse all day. I guess so. I don't envision one of
Definitely knew I did that. I'll just try where it is. I looked at the Facebook and sure enough, they didn't. And then when they did say what was doing it, there are numbers from the church, but then I looked under the property search. And it is like the center, which was church. They're not necessarily
They're
Which one?
Well, I would actually,
Yeah, and that was kind of like so one further north, one by the new one.
Get started in a moment.
I'm very map we don't have
You don't really want to do this? Hey,
Well, because and yeah, he's got some other kids. Now that you mention that, in terms of considering, I do. So I
okay, let's we can find our tables again.
Get started with the synthesis presentation. So the process is we will be sharing what we think. We think of it as an offering. We're offering this for your consideration. We're going to be offering you 3 options, and then we're going to do that. We'll cover the ground. We'll go new tech, new site, Apollo, and then transform tech at existing site. Okay, in that order. And then we will present some pricing information, rough order of magnitude of projected costs, and then we will be splitting you into tables, not splitting you, bringing you together around tables, but we'll be doing an exercise where we count on and assign you to a table, and then we'll do some table work and assessment. So, without further ado, we're going to start with the new tech and the new site. And I'm going to ask our city representative to join me on this one, because one of the things there was about connecting with community. And well, this is it. We're just going to share the 2 site plans. Now, you saw before the 4 block models of the new construction proposals, and you know that we know that that's going to be about 360,000 square feet. We know roughly what that is going to cost based on new high school construction that is recently completed in Minnesota. So we can give you a cost estimate for what a new high school on a new site will cost. And I have to tell you that we spent most of our time looking at Apollo and tech, because those are challenges that have to be solved within an existing site. So the awareness of what a new high school on a new site is sort of based on, I think, what you already know what that can be. And you don't need to see that fully developed. If we go that direction, the charrettes in February will be focused on bringing that to fruition. But we feel like we have some really good options here, and you and the board will be able to see that. The point we want to make is we think one of those sites is the better of the 2. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. If you can share, this is the reason why we think this is a really great idea. So if you can tell us about the city's proposal, we would love to hear about it. And did you have a mic?
We'll see if it works. It does work. David got it right finally. For those that don't know, the city's planning documents, the city has been planning for growth along the 33rd Street South Corridor for over 15 years, ever since the merger with St. Cloud Township occurred. This has been our primary growth area. We've been extending utilities, and now utilities within 33rd to where the interchange is now, and actually coming south from the interchange. We have the infrastructure needed to accommodate development within reach of less than a year for construction. Well, with that said, for those 15 years, we've been planning on development to the south. Over that time, the city's been acquiring over 200 acres just adjacent to the site that's in question here. And those are noted in the red. One of the other interesting pieces that occurred over that time was the city's acquisition, or the school district's acquisition of additional 67 acres that are contiguous. A bit different in that they are really non-buildable, they're environmentally sensitive areas, probably not conducive to a school property or school building. So the city has talked about in the past conveying this 40-acre piece that is buildable and swapping out with the school district, the non-buildable, not appropriate for a school building, with what is buildable that we own. So there'd be a swap in place. As a result of that discussion, we in 2007 did a master plan. What we're going to do with those 200+ acres in this area. What would occur if we were to acquire this property in this and we have to figure that out so we can start planning for that development. And what you see before you is a lot of, the results of a lot of good work. Community discussions that realize that this really needs to be, maybe the easiest frame of reference is the living in the south. We hear people call it that there needs to be a place where folks can come together in a regional setting, have active recreation spaces, and that's what you see in the master plan. Everything from softball fields, multiple field concept, see multiple soccer fields within the project as well. And then you see maintenance of open space as well, environmentally sensitive areas like the creek itself. The plan goes as far as to suggest that the far south edge of the property would be the site for a southwest fire station, a southwest public works facility for the city. There are snowplows and those kinds of equipment, public works types operations don't have to drive all the way over the east side. They have this kind of southwest operation site. But through that master plan, school district city really had that discussion about how could we work together on the site, what synergies could be developed in the master plan. So that's what's before you. That is still an adopted plan, something that we're moving forward on. And if you would have asked us 10 years ago, this was in the works to be built. As development was really rushing forward, we saw hundreds of homes being built in the adjacent neighborhoods. We were saying, okay, it's something that we're planning on building in 5 years. Estimate was over $10 million to get some of the early phases done. We don't have the current cost estimate. As development slowed on the south side, we took this off of the to-do list. We put it on the back burner. But with the understanding that this was still a valid plan, it needed to come forward when development pressure returned. And that's where we're at right now, is if this decision is made, and combined with the new housing pressure that we're seeing, returning housing pressure and construction, this is coming back on our radar screen. The other piece of the puzzle is really how you're going to pay for it with the passage of the regional sales tax. Just a couple of weeks ago, there are now the funds available to pay for these kinds of regional park improvements. So with development pressure returning, with the funding now becoming available, this is an improvement that the city is ready to go forward with if the decision is made to put school inside.
Any questions for Matt?
This is just clarifying in terms of what's what, where's where. At the top, I see 33rd Street in the middle. Is that Klein's?
Klein's, correct.
Thank you very much.
Correct, 74, just off of the edge of the area there. And then County Road 136, interstate is just 500 feet out of the area.
So where would the school go exactly? And would then all those sports fields be co-managed between the school district and the city?
That's what the master plan suggests, is that there'd be a relationship where it'd be shared maintenance, shared costs perhaps, in their construction of capital improvements.
Now, the plan that you saw, the slide before, does not acknowledge yet the working of that out. So the costs you're going to see would benefit from a collaborative effort. It hasn't been sorted out yet. Now the design teams, I believe, because you were working with the design teams, were aware of this relationship and worked the connection. Is that true? Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So we're talking with Matt. This is the Nina Park. So you can see the creek here. So the park would be just on this side. On this, the creek is this way.
Got it.
Where is the other?
Yeah, 80% race on the mass of the development in both concepts was this 40-acre and this 40-acre piece. So taking advantage of the natural setting around the perimeter to the east and the north. So it's these two plus an additional 20 acres.
Can you speak to the
Yes.
Yeah, through the master planning process, the intention was clearly to get from the west side, which could have at the time either been residential development or a school. And so you see connections through roadways, elevated boardwalks, a different, number of different ways of crossing that creek, either for vehicles or for just pedestrian movements.
Can we give Mary a hand and thank her for all the food that she has provided? Thank you, Mary.
Okay, any other questions?
Could somebody put their finger on the place where a building might be? Right there.
No.
And who owns that? I don't know.
Private ownership, I understand the school district's in negotiation and might have some position on the property. City owns this 40, school owns this 67.
And we'll share costs of that coming up.
Is there a reason that,
Okay, yeah, it might be hard to see.
I was just wondering if there was a reason that, can we go back to the other picture that the teams did? Neither team did anything on that left side. Was that just, do we not own that property, or what was the reason for that?
This is the extent of the 40 that the city controls, so this was that adjacent 40 and then the additional extra land that we acquired.
Thank you.
In the neighborhood.
What's that circle and there's like courts and stuff like that?
Right, sorry, it might be tough to, with the varying shades of green here. 3 softball and a youth baseball.
And that's
3 soccer, regulation soccer fields, a 4 soccer field.
that's proposed?
Correct.
It's not existing?
No, not existing, that's within the master plan that we would construct.
It's proposed. Over here. This is hard work, David.
Visionary, are we landlocked then? I mean, do we become landlocked if we want to grow or need to grow? Where would the growth come from?
The limiting factors are not limiting beliefs, they're actually limiting beliefs. You have a DNR trout stream, which is a neat opportunity. It'd be very difficult to cross that, or build across it, fill it. And this is the same as that seems to be coming through. So I think the limiting factors are really to the north and to the east. How much you want to acquire to the west is really the question.
Right.
Certainly there's enough land here, there's about 400 acres that you could buy if you wanted to buy more to address that concern.
How much infrastructure has already been brought into that area?
We'll have, how much infrastructure has been already brought into that area is the question.
From the intersection of County 74, which is just off the aerial here at 33rd, we came about 500 feet to the south. So right to about this point. So it's an easy run coming down another 1,000 feet and then into the site, depending on where the building placement is. Like an easy run.
Okay.
So then, could the school share those fields? I mean, would the school need to build fields, or could they use the city fields?
Right, during the master plan, we talked about joint use of the field. So city could use it, the school could use it.
And some joint operation and maintenance.
Correct.
It's a good opportunity. And it's why we're recommending this site over the other one, which is also on the other side of the creek.
It's on the north of or south of the creek.
We think this is a better fit for the connection to the community. And that's, you know, if you might weigh in as a task force on that too. But we're recommending that too.
It appears that what the red line, the borders the property, undulating in and out, there's a number of farm settings that are around that community. Looks like there's one just to the right of those recreational fields that's in the middle, right there. Oh, that's a cellular tower? Okay.
These are non-farming dwellings.
Non-farming?
Non-farm dwellings. They're homes.
One more, 2 more.
In addition to this infrastructure that you have here, is there plans already, besides the Highway 15 interchange that's going on, to address the roads getting over to this area, like 33rd Street South? I mean, that's a 2-lane road right now, even getting off County Road 75, I know that that's been improved, but some of those intersections, you know, between this south side, and I don't know the name, but whatever goes right in front of Oak Hill, I mean, yeah, so are those roads, is that part of the plans and discussions too, to improve those roads and increased traffic?
It is. The primary focus at this point is the east-west traffic, and then getting folks on 15 so we can lessen the trip demand on 136, on 74, on Cooper. So that was really the intention in investing in the interchange at 15 and 33rd, so folks could go west, get on 15 and then go west. So that would hopefully delay those investments, but it does raise the question of how quickly does the city move on the entire 33rd Street corridor. And like the other, we had that in the 5-year plan to actually build. We dropped it off and housing pressure slowed. Now that it's picking up again and the school decision is made, we'll put it back in the plan to build the middle section of 33rd.
Where does the school property connect to the roads? Is the primary access to the south on 40th Street, or is it to the north on 33rd? Where do you plan to put the roads, and where's the bus shoes going to be?
Well, again, going to the north from what would be the buildable site, across the stream, across the environmental license, very, very difficult for a full road section. So as I've envisioned it, when we did the master plan a couple of years ago, they talked about access fully coming off of County 74, one or two or three depending on need, and then also a single or double access coming down from the south. That'd be west and south of the main access.
If I can just comment. The only comment I wanted to make is that we think as the teams took a look at both sites can accommodate the program and the parking and the circulation. That seemed to be a fairly neutral thing, but this one seems to have this great connection to a community. So that's all the point I wanted to make.
Just one, back to the transportation question, the other long-range improvement would be 40th Street South. Those that know our planning documents, 40th Street would be a connection all the way to the next stop area. We already have an environmental review done for that, so you'd be able to go all the way from St. Augusta, 23 all the way over the next stop.
That question in regards to the future, as far as comprehensive plan in 33rd, any plans as far as connecting over the river to the south, that'd be southeast side of St. Cloud?
Oops, I need to leave, sorry. Now I'm on the hot seat here. 15 years ago, the city did a plan based on this concept of a ring road that had 33rd being the southern beltway of that ring road, and it had a crossing in the Mississippi River that was very contentious. But there's an environmental review that calls for that entire ring road that would swing from the interchange at 15 and 33rd all the way up in between Wayne Park and St. Joe. So this is the corridor that's really designed to be that ring road.
How far is
proposed St. Augusta from here?
2.5 miles.
2.5 miles.
1.5 miles, 2.5 miles.
Okay.
I'm feeling the need to move us on.
One real quick question.
And you have this is your very first question.
It is my very first question. Matt, could you just comment on fire and police? Where they would be located?
The fire issue would be addressed with a new fire station here. As we see residential growth return, we need another fire station. This would be the location. Police service would again have a substation and a fire station most likely.
So both of them are served by St. Cloud?
Yes.
The site's served by St. Cloud?
This is entirely served by St. Cloud, and that would be the location.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for helping out. Let's give Matt a round of applause. So this brings us to, we're going to share costs after the presentation. So this brings us to Apollo, I think, right now. And we're going to put up a SketchUp model.
site and the building, which should so I guess I can talk to this. Now this is working. Okay, I think one of the big things we are taking a look at, this is a three-dimensional model in here, but right now we're sort of looking at it from above. And we're recommending kind of a reconfiguration of the site, specifically with some of the transportation issues, because there's some bottlenecks and some security issues. We're going to defer to the arrangement of fields, and 3 people left the stadium, some people moved the stadium. There's some issues around the fields that we think that can be improved, but we think there's some really good work that can be done in terms of safety and security. Right now the bus chute is here, and there's a conflict with parent pickup and drop off. Everybody kind of feel that, understand. So we're wondering what would happen if the bus chute comes in here. Staff parking is reorganized to this part of the site. And the reason we do that, staff and buses are a good fit. Students and buses are a bad fit. Raise your hand if you're aware of that. Okay. And parents and buses. So buses, we can do a turnaround and handle that. Then the reason we're bringing them back here, then we can load students and parents and visitors. So students, buses, and visitors all to this special magical spot right here. You'll see what that looks like in a bit. So it's kind of exciting. We're proposing some additions, right? Some additional, did you move that again? Some additional gym spaces, some additional fine art space, music, etc. It's sort of right there next to the theater, and it's not quite right yet. Food service, having a commons like Hopkins or Alex, opening up some space, admin here, that's safety and secure, watching over the whole main entry, and then reorganizing all of you created learning communities sprinkled around Apollo, kind of reorganizing it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this might be 5, 6, 7, 8. So smaller learning communities organized around whatever we end up organizing school around, right? And that has yet to flow from a really rigorous discussion around curriculum and teaching and learning, but we can see lots of potential there. And then opening up in the middle, opening up space, creating special resources. This kind of public-private diagram all of you did with activities and kind of academics with kind of shared community zone in the middle. Somebody recommended maybe it's kind of STEM space or hands-on teaching and learning. Or some interesting kind of community use, community connection piece there. None of that is really resolved because programmatically, but the program blocks sort of fit, in this model. So Scott, why don't you just, can we go to, there we go. And just kind of spin around. There's that courtyard here, right? So we thought that'd be cool to kind of build we know the district does not like skylights. We're aware of that. But can you do a light scoop, and bring in natural light into the heart of that? create a new, that whole sort of student commons piece, main entry, food service. So it gets that whole combo together. Popping up, maybe, you had a lot of diagrams where you wanted to pop up the roof or make it a little taller, or even academic space. We don't know if you need more height or additional stories yet. That will play out with a program fit, But this is a really good spot for food service. That's a really good spot for. It's really efficient because you don't really have to add any more circulation. So there are places there to renovate, and so this is an approach of selective renovation, and then pretty simple additions. But again, good bones, reorganize the site, safety and security. This is what we're offering as kind of a design solution at this point for Apollo.
So the students park over here and they come to the entrance, or is there going to be a back door that they come to?
The question is, because we're proposing that students park here, as I understand, staff parks here now? Oh, students park here, so that's a no change thing. But they're coming in here, right? There's a main entry here now. So they come in, and then visitors come in, and then students come in, so they all converge in that commons. Right, so everybody enters the same spot, essentially. Yes?
On the north side of the building, you showed us where the parking lot is for the staff, which you can't see it right now.
Yeah, here.
What's the other marking? Just more student parking?
Oh, we're adding, because we have to add a couple hundred spaces to the diagram because of the program. So if you can pull back, Scott, or just, there's an extension of parking there. Any other comments or in the back?
One of the issues that came up often with Apollo is lack of natural light. And I see the two scoops, but how does that filter into the classroom space, or is that too detailed for questions?
That's entirely the purpose. I hate this microphone. These bars, you see how they sort of pop up, the roof pops up in the heart or in the center. So the idea is to bring natural light into these dark, windowless boxes, which this site has a lot of windowless space. Tons of windowless space. But we think that's an easy solution by selective introduction of clear story lighting versus skylight. So we pop the roof up and bring in clear story lights.
What would be the use of the existing common area between the performing arts and the gymnasiums that I think is used for cafeteria at this time?
Yeah, right now we're proposing that it be utilized again for that pre-function for gym and theater. There's also some additional space programmatically that could be put there, but we're moving the epicenter of that commons from this location to this location.
We're also going up to 1,800 students in the program.
Yes.
So we're going to need more of that space that currently exists, so there'd be this space and it would flow back into that.
And we kick the district out.
And we kick the district out, yeah.
Sorry. Other questions? So this is, you'll see some numbers for what it takes to do this. So let's move on. Well, this is kind of a whole multi-phase thing. All right. Let's get my bearings. Scott, what are we going to see first? Phase one. So,
I just want you to remember the common ground now.
No more secret.
Every one of you, got rid of buildings and bought property. So what so we were inspired by several solutions. One of the common ground pieces was that you rebuild all the learning space, either right, west or north, or to the northwest. And one solution had an awesome addition facing the library, right? And so the idea is to create, 2 or 3 story learning communities or whatever we need to do there in great neighborhoods, and develop a commons, that commons and food service thing, and connect it to the gyms and the pool, that existing historic building, which you all of you saved a big component. That'll come up in a bit. Don't do anything yet. But all of what was common, all of you saved this and the gyms and the pool. Most of you took that off. You'll see that in a second. You all took that off. It's tough to add learning space to the west because you got a phasing problem. You got to build something here to solve the problem, to get new learning space, right? So now that's done, students occupied. What's phase 2 look like? Good. Oh, okay. So now, the 60s building is gone, freed up, and parking and new entry, right? Solved main entry. And your solutions were kind of iffy on where entries were, right? Those working on it was sort of tough. And some of you had, trying to restore entries here, but the new school is here, right? So we're thinking it'd be great to have entries, sort of back entry and main entry facing the lake and the community. Let's put our best face forward. And then, parking, we're finding parking here, here, and here, and we're acquiring the sites, and so you get a new face, and these houses are gone, and we didn't do it, you guys. You guys did it first. Just want to be clear. But it really creates a good presence for the school in the community, right? It's a good presence for the school. And it starts to make sense as a diagram. This is like the new epicenter. Let's see what, we have one more phase. Yeah, because we have fine art stuff to add, right? Because there's a theater in here. But now, fine arts, fitness, connection to the lake, you kind of got a cool thing happening. But this is so far, the existing historic building is so far away from the epicenter now, that becomes available for, we don't know what, but there's not a lot of classroom space there, so it could be some other district functions. So this is kind of our take, and he's going to flip around. This is our take on what tech basically rebuilt on this site might look like. Yeah, and there's a significant, the historic building has a significant amount of work that it needs. You heard that before, the maintenance and a lot of stuff needs to be repaired and replaced. So this is, it's a significant upgrade.
So is the original building the red?
Yes, well, no. This is interesting.
The original building goes to here, and then this was an addition, and the original was 1920, 1917, you knew that. And this is 38.
So there's the existing.
Two pieces. This was built to match. I mean, can you spin around and get this corner? I mean, that's a historic facade, right? But it is 12 inches deep. You go inside that building, and it is, where's the history? Right, be honest. It looks like a 1970s bad school. It's got weird orange stuff. No, you know, like the stair towers, right? They're like concrete. They look like this. So, you know, when that was remodeled, there were fire stairs or whatever. But it looks like a 1960s or 70s school. It doesn't look like a historic school.
Some of which is because it's a wood frame building.
Yeah, it is a wood frame building, and it's got structural deficiencies, and it's kind of a tough thing. But we don't think, this is the part that we think needs to stay for the community, whether it's a school or not. You know, we think you're invested in that building as a building, whether it's a school or not. And it could be a great building. A lot of people, you know, housing people especially love buildings like that. I said that before. Office people. You would have no problem repurposing that. Now I want to add something. There was another proposal because there was a proposal that you do a skyway and parking deck across so that you don't take land, you don't take houses. And we'll show you the cost of that in a second, not yet. But, so we looked at pricing that out, and this is actually quite a bit less expensive than doing that. So.
Including buying the property?
Yes. Yes. We'll show you the numbers, but we think there's value in the relationship of getting the parking. Now, this isn't solving it's not solving the field issues. And in this option, I think we're because what was common ground was do the field improvements. So we didn't really spend time. We've been working hard to solve the diagram on the site. Like, what does it look like if tech is rebuilt on the land and we can phase it? Because you got to phase it. You can't lose instructional time.
Any other questions?
More questions? 5 and 6. Yeah, keep
going. Has there been consideration to relocating the district administration office in the 1917 portion of the tech?
We think it's a really good fit with that. We think it's a really good fit with that either way, right? Now, it may not be, you know, we think there's value. We have not discussed this with the district at all. Really, we haven't. So we think there's value in having them there, sort of in this heart of the community, you know, instead of here. It's a little weird that they're here. And they're here because they're space together, right? And they don't really, they'll go wherever, you know, wherever you put them. Because right now they have no home. They have no home, they're homeless. So, but we think that could be a good fit. It could be a good fit for a number of things. We, you know, as you said, we might need to do something on that. But, other questions?
How many levels is that? How many levels is it?
3. You know, some single story, and then the learning communities are 3-story, like it is now.
How many homes would be taken?
How many homes were taken? We've got that in the estimate.
Yeah, we have that in the estimate. We'll show you the number, don't. But you could turn the building off. Then you could count them, but we're not going to let you.
John, 27.
27. 27 houses are purchased. Correct. The only thing that we did parking here. Is that right? Parking and Clark Field, because I think you guys all added that too. That's part of your plan. Well, actually, not. This meets the parking. This meets the parking assessment, but we think this site is so popular. We understand there's a big issue with getting enough parking, also for games. This gets all the parking off the street, which is a benefit to the neighborhood, I would imagine. You're a different neighborhood.
I do have a question. As far as aesthetics go, I think a lot of people were interested in retaining the original old building. I'm just wondering how the new construction would look compared to that. Is it just going to be
We are
something?
proposing blue transparent glass. And very modern aesthetic. That is sweet. No, it's way too early. You know, you saw the model yesterday, the Natrona one, where you could replicate the lines and, you know, match brick. And, you know, does it blend or does it complement? This could be done almost anyway because the geometry is shifted. This building has to be part of this language, right? So it's a great, you don't have to be a slave to this. And it has a completely different setting. But this isn't about aesthetics. I don't think this is about aesthetics, except if you want a criteria.
John, this is a diagram.
This is totally diagrammatic, but it works and it fits.
Over here, John.
He's got one.
Just a question about, we haven't solved the sports stuff here. And if we're looking at equal schools, we haven't done that with this model.
Well, one group did. And I'm not going to. I'm just not. I'm not going to show, we're not going to propose it. And you know, we had several comments that the field, you're using fields in other parts of that broader thing. You know, this is getting the program and the parking in a spot, but it's not solving the fields at all. I do want to be clear. And you saw it, you all laughed, so you saw it. And I was glad they offered that, because I didn't.
Okay, so this is why originally I asked for models of urban renovations with a small footprint. And I have lived in St. Cloud now longest of any place in my life, but I understand I'm not from here. My sense is, I guess my values are just so different. I was hoping for something, this is Wyoming, right? This is the glorious site there. Whereas I was hoping for something in between.
This is a much smaller site than the Wyoming.
Well, but in terms of a concept, in terms of clearing land around it and setting up, you know, kind of completely redone kind of historic preservation move, as opposed to the smaller footprint, you know, you gave us that spectrum. I was hoping for something in between that middle school and this, something where it would be more.
That would be appropriate to talk about at the table.
Okay, but yeah, anyway, so what I'm not seeing here is sort of, this seems like it's sort of set up not as a practical solution in some respects, or, I mean, it's certainly aiming for lots of parking.
It's in the feedback. And it's maybe the parking requirement. In one way. And we'll there's another way to solve it with the bridge thing and the parking deck. There's a cost to that.
And I guess that's where I was going.
And we can't not meet the parking. That's the thing. We can't not do that. So.
Is there any way to go with a multi-level parking facility on this building?
So as you,
Well, you're talking about across the street.
This is the offering, so you can suggest alternatives, and we'll show you what the cost impact is now. You already want to tweak it, so, right? So you'll get a chance to do that now. Right. Any other comments? And I think we need to share the price and get you to some paperwork. Everybody okay moving on?
Yes.
Everybody feel like they understand the solutions proposed? Okay. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Now we're going to share costs, and we're going to start with a new tack on a new site. A brand new building on this site next to this park. And it does not, this price does not assume any collaboration with the fields yet. So just move forward. Okay, so this is based on Alexandria, right? A new high school on a new site with the same amount of field development. So what we're going to do is just we're trying to be as transparent as possible. This is what Alexandria cost. Construction costs, and we collaborated with Kraus Anderson, the construction manager on that project, and we worked with them to develop a price of if Alexandria was built 4 years after Alex, so we have some lag time, and it's bigger, what would it cost? So this is what Alex cost at 280,000 square feet, 187 square feet per dollars per square foot, 52.3. The site development costs were $8 million. That's to do all the fields and the turf and the stadium and the parking, etc. And then soft costs at $12 million for a total of 73. Okay, so let's go. So this is just establishing what is. So now we're assuming similar quality, bumping up the square footage, and inflating the square foot cost based on Kraus Anderson's expertise or experience with, I think it's 2%, 8%, 6%, 6%. So there's an inflation cost from 2012 to 2016, 4 years later. Okay. So we get this number, site development costs go up with inflation, soft costs at 20%, and that's the subtotal. And this is the cost if you buy that property to complete the project. The estimates run utilities and the property acquisition. That's shown there for the total at the bottom.
Does that include a pool or no pool?
Yeah, no, it includes the pool as a program. Now you can take things out. It's just the baseline, okay?
But there is a
It's just the baseline. Yeah, in that square footage. It will fit in the square footage of 360. Now, if you want to, you can play those games, but for the purposes of this next exercise, this is roughly what a new high school to serve 1,800 students on a new site will cost. Okay, and if you want to reduce students, you can, you can do the math yourself. Right? That's the whole point. We're being transparent. This is what it is. Fees and expenses and furniture and technology and equipment. Contingency, construction contingency. You're going to see that go up on the other one. In terms of there's an operational cost. Yeah.
Getting back to the pool concept, obviously to put a pool in, I would think per square foot would cost more than to put a classroom in. I'm just guessing. Why did Alexandria opt out of putting a pool in their new high school?
Oh, yeah, that was explained on a tour. They have one pool that they're happy with in the middle school. And they're very expensive to operate. So they, you know, I mean, you don't have to have a pool here. You might have to have, you decide. This includes 360,000 square feet. If you want to keep the pool in a community center at this, you know, at the existing tech site, you might have that option. But this assumes 360,000 square feet.
But you don't think adding a pool, into the new tech would up our price per square foot?
No, no, not the way we price it.
Okay.
We don't have to pay attention to that at this point. Any other questions?
So assuming the plans were synthesizing their input and then cost gathered after that, what is the confidence level in the estimates? I mean, is it plus or minus what percent?
Alexandria hit the, if you go back one, at the beginning, this is what we projected prior to the referendum in Alex and hit it. I mean, that's what we do. We hit our numbers. And at the interview, we said it would cost this much, and it did. So we're very confident of our number projections.
Well, once the number stated, that's what everybody's going to stick to.
John, we're talking about order of magnitude though, right? I mean, what we did is these are comparative one to the next, so it's all an order of magnitude. So these aren't like, this is
once it's public.
Yeah. This isn't what it will actually cost until we get through some more development. But this is order of magnitude.
If you're asking for my...
Once the price is stated, that's...
You're asking for my confidence?
I'm asking for a confidence level on an estimate. Would you expect it to be...
This is a projection of a budget, not yet an estimate, so... But we do that all the time.
No, I understand what you're saying. I've worked with that type of stuff. When a cost is put before the public, that's what's seen.
Yeah. I agree. So,
the statement.
But we feel that you need to know that's what this is our job. This is your job. You need to share and grapple with the costs.
So when we leave here, it would not be right for us to tell people that
I would not,
I
would talk to the board about it tonight at 8 o'clock. And then they may have some guidance for you. But that becomes a decision in March of next year, right, for a referendum. These are numbers for your consideration at this point. If you build a new high school on a new site, you could logically expect to pay this for this high school. And it's just neutral information at this point. Try to just look at it as neutral. It's just how much it is. And if, you know, that was the challenge. What does a new facility on a new site cost to serve 1,800 students like Alexandria? Okay, that's what it is. As neutral as possible. Make sense? Yeah. All right. I think we're going to go, oh yeah, Apollo High School renovated. Now, again, this is, using, we don't have like the Alex sort of just done, but we have other cost models that are about new construction, 40,000 square feet. This is starting to get complicated now. We've got heavy remodeling, light remodeling. We've got maintenance items to take care of, we know from the district, you know, lists and lists and lists of things that are broken, which you noticed in your tours, by the way. Subtotal there, site amount, field improvements, site circulation, parking improvements, parking lot maintenance. Those total up. Soft costs are a little higher because it's complicated renovation. You know, it's maybe later right? It's maybe 5 years out. We don't know, but that stuff gets sort of worked out as you project. We don't want you to get too hung up on that, but roughly 50 million, right? Think in your head, how it could be really cool. And Hopkins was 40, you know, 10 years ago, so it's not, right, it's not an unusual number. It's right in that ballpark. It's what your neighbors are doing. It's the investment to do a 20, right?
That includes the new heating system?
David, I think we included the, David's going to answer that, because I want to answer the question.
You want to, but you can't. We did not. That doesn't include that 14 million. It's not in its totals because this is the general maintenance, but it's not in there because that's budgeted under that other program through the HVAC infrastructure improvements. So that's a budgeted cost that's being paid for outside of what would go out of a referendum. So there's a it's a roughly $14 million cost to do that conversion, but that wouldn't be a part of a referendum cost. That's in another, coming from another funding source. Okay.
Yeah, there's some details to be sorted through. Big idea. Questions on this? And you're sort of like seeing the numbers for the first time, so.
We're seeing it for the
second time. Want to move on?
Yes.
You want to see what tech costs? Okay. So what we're projecting tech to take, renovated, this assumes phased construction. The model you're seeing shows 240,000 square feet of new construction. It saves 200,000 square feet of the existing building. Okay? 200,000 square feet of the existing building are saved. 150,000 of that we're projecting needs to be heavily remodeled because of the condition of the building and different uses. And about 50,000 square feet of light remodeling. These are the areas of gym, locker rooms, old media centers, that kind of space. You know, I mean, you don't have to fix the locker rooms, but then you have an equity issue, right? So this is what it would take. Then the property acquisition. Now, this is really, you know, like who knows, but 27 properties. That includes acquisition and demo, and we just have a placeholder for what others are doing, or, you know, I think it's 200,000 a site. Don't quote me. There's a demolition cost. Utility relocation where the bus chute is, which I understand is the reason it was never done in the first place. So there's a bunch of utilities that run in that street that have to, that's a cost, 2.5. The parking spaces have a cost. Clark Field improvements. That number is from somebody else, an alumni association.
Yes.
Right, is that your number? Okay, we just carried that. I think that's fine, and like your plan. Then, you know, media services, we booted them out. We don't know where they're going. And that's to be determined. So that gives us to a subtotal of 116 and soft costs on that, so a total of 149. So 149, 150, 50, 100, 150. Kind of a three options.
Your percentage of soft costs on this renovation is significantly higher than
significantly, and that's because of the phasing and the reservation, or the age of the building, change orders, unforeseen conditions go way up in this kind of project, and the multiple phasing.
And this is only Clark Field.
There's no track, there's no softball fields, there's no baseball fields, there's no tennis courts. It's just court field as the Alumni Association has presented already.
Yeah, now, clarification, the Clark Field plan, does that have a track? No. Oh, it doesn't, because some will reorient it with track, so it would not have a track. But it would have it's a pretty nice stadium, and turf, so it have multiple uses for practice.
The relocation of DAO and/or the media center, how do you build that cost? So that's going to be a cost. Would that be in the referendum, or would that be funded differently?
I think we have to understand what some of those options are. But I think with, they could be relocated. If they go here in the tech plan, then the costs are accommodated. If they go here. Somewhat. You understand? Because there's other district uses that we haven't really worked out. But if they're, if we don't know what the district process are. And so maybe, I would love to have a conversation. Maybe yet this evening. And it's okay if that's not resolved. It's not part of our, if you have ideas about that location, it's just not part of it. Okay, next one. Yeah, next stage, next workshops.
I have two things. One is this had an expensive furnace replacement also. Does it need that since you're maintaining 200,000 square feet, or does this include just a whole new heating system?
Yeah, what we did was, because we were taking down most of the building and just remaining that part of it, we built some costs into the remodeling costs to do some of that conversion. Because we're basically, the new building would provide a new system. So we would just come back into the old part of the building and just flip that around and work. So we built some costs in to take care of that in this one. Makes sense?
One more. Just a comment about the soccer, football, lacrosse field. Soccer and football being the same season, you'll still be transporting athletes to a different place to practice.
For practice.
This clearly doesn't meet the site program stuff. But we feel it meets the 21st century, a great new 21st century high school on this campus, on this site.
John?
We need to move into the next thing. Is there another slide? Or is that it?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
We're getting close to our creative deadline, John.
Meg, I know. Oh,
We
okay.
need tabletop time, though.
Yes.
So let's number off 1 to 12,
Oh,
and then
yes.
we're going to switch tables.
Now the tables are numbered.
Sorry.
Right?
I've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 8.
1,
4,
5, 6,
7,
9, 10.
11, 12.
1, 2, 3.
Over here. 6, Okay, back to the number. Okay, down here. 1.
2, 4.
8,
9,
11,
12.
1, here, 3, take those eyes. 7, 9, 10. Anybody missing a number? Thank you.
Okay, please take a table seat immediately. And then we're going to share with you the projected costs for the Skyway and the parking deck. Okay, let's be efficient now.
Robert, you good. Come back.
10, 15 minutes for this exercise.
All right, we're going to do this in an hour, right?
And if I can have your attention, there was a question about what was the cost to build a structured deck, David, and we got that information today.
Okay, so we did some there's two pieces that were part of one of the plans. One was the Skyway across Highway 23, building a deck over at the library. So the Skyway across Highway 23, state highway, there's quite a bit of cost there. There's 150 feet of Skyway. We come across, we got some estimates today, that would be about $2.8 million without any soft costs. So about $2.8 million to build that bridge across Highway 23. A ramp or a deck for parking, you can assume about $16,000 per stall. So for the program, using 570,000 stalls, that'd be a lot. 570 stalls, that'd be about 9.1 million. So if you did both of those things, it's about 11.9. Now that's in today's dollars. So you inflate that, you get another 1.8 million, 13.7 million to do both of those, and then with soft costs at 20%, you end up, if you did both of them, at about 16.4 million to build the deck for parking over there and bring a ramp across. Now, if you want to just consider and think about doing the deck, you use the 16,000 square feet of stall times the number of stalls, you come up with a number, and then just inflate that by about 15%, and then inflate that number again by about 20% to cover soft costs. So ramps and decks are expensive, so if you want to put a deck on that site, you can do that as well. Yes?
Okay, with that option, though, then would we be able to take out?
You'd be able to take out some of the properties, right? Or all of them, depending on how you lay it out. If you
leave back all of the properties, and then we could get rid of the other parking parking spaces. Because we could put it all in that.
Yeah, you can put some of this. Some of these properties are still being used to get all of that learning space over there.
It's a one or another choice. So if you want that, then you're going to add 6 million to the cost.
Right, but we would also be deducting possibly 6.9 million.
Not all of it, because some of that's for the building, the phasing.
Right.
No, I think
you need to get to this table exercise in just a bit. One more question.
Add 6 million. Add 6 million.
On the parking ramp going over to the library, I'm not sure if anyone thought of this, but I would have concerns over safety of the students. You're going to be leaving cars with hundreds of kids. If they have after-school activities, they're going to be there at night. Is it going to be staffed? How will we guarantee any kind of safety to kids? I don't think there's a single multi-layered parking for any schools that I'm aware of.
We think that's kind of why we think this is less expensive and safer, and the parking's adjacent. So, this is what you're going to weigh in on right now. Now, before we do this, I'm going to ask you to, if you're okay with this, we feel like Apollo is in a place that it can be, we need to make a decision, a recommendation about tech. And if you want to make a recommendation at your table and take Apollo off your discussion, you may. And if I could get if you think the Apollo the solution meets sort of the criteria, you can give me a show of hands, or you can show of hands if Apollo feels like it's in a good spot. Yeah, that's most of you. And this is about a recommendation. So you're gonna, at your tables, you're going to, we hand out the criteria. We'd like you to have a discussion about rating each one. Maybe you want to score them 1 to 5, where 1 does not meet the criteria, 5, meets the criteria. Have a table discussion, and then we're going to ask you to, in about 10, 15 minutes, pick a speaker and share your thoughts to the rest of us. And if you have a recommendation your table is leaning towards, please let us know. So have fun and relax and let go. So you're not scoring a Apollo. Apollo is going to be presented to the board as is tonight. Scott. Scott.
We got the boss down, a new tech and a new segment. So what we have to do is based on here, I will be, it meets the most is what is our recommendation. Yep. Well, we can make new memories for wherever. But the cost is going to be huge this time. Unfortunately, I mean, that's just this is how it is. I mean, if they but that's a huge difference. The building will be fine. It was and I did very strong core, but that's not why we're
I'm not saying there's a lot of flexibility, I'm just saying it's pretty clear. I'm saying that the one city.
Okay, there was a question about the ranking system. It's asking you to have a discussion at the table, scoring 1 to 5. 5 is good, 5 highly needs, 1 is not so much. Not so much meets the criteria. And the point is to have a discussion about those criteria
You don't have to rank them if they were just. I don't I think the other thing we can look at is look at older versions with their new design. That's probably everything else is so what is not, because all of this there's new plans taken care of, it's just these two. And they have all the sidewalks in there.
I'm looking at a building and I'm working That's the quickest route for them to get to the ferry. Is mom and kids at those stairways. They can only go single file past them. Well, it's we're being asked to envision, which is what we're being asked to do, envision these items protected and remodeled. And that's what I'm compared to Olympic House, So am I saying you're going to order two by no means, but in my
No, the other thing is, I look at definitions of tax, I run all the tax basis, tax companies, so that needs to be
let's do both.
But it's also the way you were talking to me that also the way they
last 4 years of the job, I can just to give you another that makes it better.
Most definitely.
So, I'm hearing some emotion here. Every time I'm very frustrated. You said I was open for this thing to this so many years. You haven't seen that about it. But we're trying to do this with the kids. That's
next 5 years or so, we'll have to, it would change, who knows, but we have Are we
That's a new school on that site. It'd be more central. All the streets that attend that school. Do you have it now where there's a larger density? Yes. But that just means that you've got, let's say, 70% coming from further distances and directions versus now.
I looked, I said, a big stop. Just right there, like, yes, the big schools and the big stop. Oh, you heard the experiences. Yeah, just ignore that. That'll be when my last daughter graduates from complicated
Okay, we're going to start the report out in 5 minutes at 7:30. That's the last possible moment we can do it. Many tables have already come to a recommendation. Try to wrap up your deliberations. Thank you.
That's, I think, where I was going after.
Dead on arrival. Dead on arrival.
I think you've got these dots red dots with everything. Right now, you're right. It's sitting in the middle of the density of dots. We want to move to a spot where all the dots on the page are within less than.
We're retarded. As long as you don't go by and just laugh. This is a part of my setting. That's what
It's like the NASA live stream with one of the NASA centers. It was I suspected him. I said, I'm a how we can first do this, but when he came by, I don't want to sacrifice innocence. I don't want to sacrifice. I mean, I would be a 21st century education.
2 minutes. We got 2 minutes.
Did you get my Skylar? I still don't think I, but that's my fault. 4.5. I just know I trust
She's started doing exports at 7. She does cross-country snorting. Rush, we love her. Yes, we love her. Yes, this was her second year. So, her first year as a head coach, yes. Who said she won't be able to come out for track? Sherry told us that she was she's still in first. But Ellie has her first Nordic meet tomorrow. So it's going to be a little by the time I'll take a I used to teach kids a class. Ellie was here too. They got they got on the snow 3 weeks early.
Who needs more time? Raise your hand. 1 table, 2 tables, 3 tables, 4 tables. 1 more minute, 2 more minutes. 1, 2. Raise your hand when you made a recommendation. You get time.
They did a rise. We did a high-end rap years ago. I think it'll be nice to give a shelter some of the because we have to make sure the high school's not going to be built. So we've got to thank you. Well, and even, Becky particularly up choir honors,
Okay, pencils down. Everyone seems to have come to a place of making a recommendation. So how we're going to do this is, Meg, you're going to scribe, and I'm going to go from table to table. And if you have a speaker, maybe a 1-minute synthesis of the experience. We have lots of tables. We'd like to be done at, we're gonna now meet to prepare for the board session in 15 minutes. So I'm gonna start here, and probably just randomly go around. But, here you go. Let's go.
All right, our table was very objective on everything, and we ended up new tech 62, old tech 36.5 were our numbers. Major issues were we still have limited fields at old tech. The parking is not by the main entrance. Safe and secure for the new tech, the park might be an issue because you have public using it. But also with old tech, emergency exits now you're bringing them closer to the highway. Where are you bringing them? You have them in parking lots, could be a concern. And that's all of our main points.
I'm sorry, was 36.5 on there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And your scores indicate a preference? Okay. This table?
We didn't add the scores up. You'll have to do it yourself. For the renovated, we came up with mostly 1s, 2s, and 3s. A couple 4s here and there. On the new tech, it's pretty much all 4s with a couple 3s. A couple of the ones that we got on the old one were for the activities and the athletic fields, and also the sustainability for the future. Still landlocked.
Okay, and then we can tabulate the scores because you asked us to.
I'm sorry, I was told I was doing it wrong, so I went vertical, then it wasn't total, so I...
Right, they have a slip though, so we can carry this on. This group? The speaker? Student, oh, they have a student.
Did you ask?
I added it. Good. I added it for the new tech. We got a 61 out of 65. I'm not sure about the remodel, but it was definitely a lot lower because of the cost and also because we had a lot of concerns over the safety of the entire area since it is in an urban setting. And there are a lot of problems caused with that, such as students leaving school even though it's a closed campus, not knowing which ones, or if people are coming back in, if they are students or if they're not, and just kind of the general safety concerns.
Thank you. Will you join the presentation team to the board?
Depends on how long it goes.
Whitney said yes. Good answer. This group? Whitney said yes.
Well, we had a general consensus around the table that the renovation of Tech High School was not viable for the negative restraints of the activities and the athletic facilities, the sustainability for future steward and the stewardship, of course the cost, but it was a practical relocation for the district administration office, immediate services, the early childhood, or the community education program. We had a majority vote, or everybody was in agreement that the 33rd Street location for the new high school would meet all of the assessments in the criteria that were on the list. Also that it was a shared athletic fields with the city of St. Cloud. Some of the items...
We're not presenting to the board now. Thank you. But we want your notes.
Okay, I'm going to be quick. 40.1 for the remodel, 61.5 for the new.
I hate to highlight the lowlights, but the new building we felt was less accessible and welcoming. That was the 3.5, and we gave community access a 3. And also with the tech remodel, we were very concerned about the cost. That's what we gave a 1 at the end.
Thank you. Next table. Go like that.
We didn't do a 1 through 5, we just did a plus and a minus. So basically, the new location came up the highest score, and with the recommendation that the current location be repurposed.
Thank you. Yeah, that was quick. I think you beat her. Have you not? No. Speaker? Thank you.
We didn't get through scoring and everything. We had more of a discussion on the issue. And that's that certainly with a new build, the flexibility and all these things are nearly universally by default better. However, the community value and community connection on some of these things do give the remodel of the tech significant presence in the scoring. So we were not able to come to a consensus, just that there's value in both. The ease with the new build does seem notable.
Okay, thank you. That's totally valid.
Okay, our score for the new tech was 62 and the reno was 50.5. We made some assumptions that based on the wonderful work that we did here as well as the wonderful work of our architects, that the flexibility, variety, welcomeness, main entrance, safety, security, daylighting, all of that would be equal because that's why we're here and we said that's what we need. Where it fell short was the 30+% difference in price and what you get for that cost. So at a $149 million price tag, we're still not happy with what the end result would be. So why not go for the less expensive option and get greater gains for it?
Thank you. This table.
We're the rebels. We chose to save paper. We're sustainable. There was no consensus at our table, although we had some great ideas of renewing Clark Field, keeping Clark Field, regardless of what happens. We wanted to use it for football, youth sports. We even talked about partnering with St. Cloud State, having them use it as overflow space, which we've talked to them about already. We also liked it for district offices, early childhood, community ed, media services, and maintaining the pool and the gym area for community space.
Awesome, thank you.
Our table also did not have consensus, actually very strong both ways. Many of the areas were the same though, and it kind of goes back to what table, whatever number over here is, that when you look at the community part, you know, that's kind of immeasurable, keeping tech where it is. But the cost and some of those facility issues advantage to the south, the farther south one. So majority, we probably went that way, but it was not consensus at all.
It was what? 5-1. Almost consensus. Almost there. Thank you. That helps. I think the group. You already went. There's a lot of people here.
In our scoring, we gave the new location a 64 and the renovated a 45. The biggest issues on the renovated, of course, were the athletics facilities and the cost. But there were some areas that we felt were really positive in the renovated. We did have 4 5s in our scoring on the renovated, but ultimately we felt the new was better use of the amount of money that the school would cost.
Is that everybody? Oh yeah. Where'd you guys go?
It took a really long time to ask because our numbers were high. So we were very nearly evenly divided. We came out with a 62 for the 33rd Avenue site and a 64 for the downtown renovation. And I think the big minus in the downtown site is the ability to expand into athletic fields. And we spent a lot of time talking about kind of a lower score for accessibility and welcoming to all of the community at the 33rd site. And then also, we spent a lot of time talking about cost in terms of community and cultural costs, in addition to the number, and sort of agreed that both million-dollar figures are just really big numbers.
David, you have some pieces of paper? Oh, okay, thank you. Is that everybody? Okay. Thank you for doing that. That was awesome. So give yourselves a round of applause. So it feels like we have a direction. Feels like we have a direction. We have three tables, I think, who did not reach consensus. One that would prefer, or one that scored, did you score? The
remodel.
The remodel higher, right? And both scored very high, right? And you had two really good choices there. That's two really good choices. But it seems like the majority of you, or of this group, is, I mean, if we were to interpret the results, we would say the majority is leaning towards a new site. We've got lots of great ideas about what goes on the old site for the first time. We've got a nice list. And there's lots of things to do in terms of defining that, and the board might have some questions about that. What I'm going to ask is, it seems pretty overwhelming, the direction you're leading as a group. If you would raise your hands and agree with that. And that's most of you. Okay, the majority of you. Are you willing to support that recommendation? Are you willing to make a recommendation based on the activities?
No.
Yes. Sea of hands.
Yeah.
I want everyone to take a look around. Okay. Who is unwilling to support the majority recommendation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10% of you. So, we don't want to leave this room with all of us not being in support of the direction. Because this goes through a community process and a referendum. If you're not in support, you don't have to personally agree with it, but you do have to support the work of the group. It will be very challenging to get anywhere without the full support of the group. Very challenging to move forward. And you've been stuck for a while. So I'm going to ask you again.
If I may.
Yes.
I'm in the minority, but I'm okay with that. I saw the process that went on. I understand
Oh,
what people
okay.
say.
All right. Thank you.
Ask the question again.
Yeah, maybe.
Would you want to phrase it for me? How would you frame it? I mean, help me out.
I thought it was you were simply asking who's in support of that majority position and who was not in support.
Oh, yeah, that's not what I meant.
Okay. Could you ask it again, please, John?
What? I really want to thank you and appreciate all of the hard work that you guys have put into this. And it's not a 100% it's not a 100% consensus. But are you willing to respect the decision of the group and move forward in a positive fashion? Show of hands. I think that's most, anybody not willing to do that.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that, I guess. How would one not be doing that?
Marcia?
So often in committees and processes where we make decisions about teaching and learning, and even as a principal in a school, when I was a principal, there were decisions, there were things that we had to move forward as a site. Okay, so I'll go back to my principal days. And so a process that we used was Fistify. And it means that you may not all agree with the decision, but you will not block or prohibit it from moving forward. Because as a principal in a building, it is very critical that my staff are on board with what we've decided we're going to do for the betterment of the students in that site. And so I think this process is very similar. We have to keep thinking about what's best for the students in this district. And so a process has taken place. We've all fully engaged in that process. And now we are at a point where we may not all agree with this particular choice to build a new site. However, it's very critical that the people who sat in this room and engaged in this process agree not to block or prohibit that decision from moving forward.
Okay, so specifically, how would one block or prohibit that from moving forward?
Okay, I'm going to go back to my principal days. So when a decision was made in my site, and let's say a third grade teacher didn't agree, it meant that he or she would do what they were asked to do, and not go out and talk about it in the parking lot, not go out and talk about it with parents in any way that did not support our decision to move forward with that process or that decision, because we were all agreed that it was what was best for kids. So I hope that helps. You know, so there's not this, in my site, once we all agreed to move forward, there wasn't anyone having another agenda, if you will, to undo what we all engaged in as a site to move forward.
Yeah, I didn't follow that. So say, would a specific example be to put in my yard, vote no against a referendum? Is that something that you're saying? Yes. Well, I don't want to raise my hand and commit to something that I don't fully understand. I'm sorry. What specifically would not be, what specifically would be going against it?
Coming back here.
Imagine this, if we're not all in consensus when we leave this room that we're going to support whatever decision we made as a majority, and not all of us agree. And we know that, and we're not all going to agree. It's not going to be unanimous. But if we go out into the community and we speak about this process and we say, well, I didn't like such and such decision, and we're negative about this to the community that we are trying to help, that we are trying to enrich, to the students that we are trying to serve, that will create a negative feeling about this entire process, which puts the referendum in danger of not being passed, which puts us in danger of not getting a remodeled tech or a new tech. And we are stuck in the same position, or an Apollo, exactly. So I think what we're trying to say, and Marcia, that was so well said, is that we just want to make sure for our students that this process can move forward so that they can have a facility, two facilities that they can be proud of, that can serve them well for the learning, the athletics, and the arts that they need to succeed in life.
One more show of hands.
Which one?
Yes. One more show of hands to move forward.
I just want to say that this is not a loyalty vote. We know that you're thoughtful, community-spirit people and all of that. And so we're going to want, as to work with you so that we have your full throat support. And if you're wavering tonight, we want to work with you. We can't win a referendum without the whole education community. We're not trying to bully you into, we're not trying to bully you into giving a promise to do something tonight that you're not ready to do. But we really want you to work with us so that we can get to that point.
Okay. Thank you. So at this point, I am looking for 6 to 7 volunteers. I've asked a few of you to, through the course of the evening, and we're going to take about, so show of hands of those who are willing to help make a presentation to the board in support.
We got 1, 2 over here.
Okay, stand up. Please stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. Okay, those 7 come here immediately. Now, the rest of you, Meg, please inform them of the activity.
Okay, we have to reset up this room, and I need your backs and your strength to do it. What we need to do is we need to put the chairs in kind of an arc over here, so we need to move the tables out of the way. And in particular, we need to have some chairs for the board members up here specifically. But we'd like to just create kind of an arc here.
Probably good. You always want to have enough. Actually.
Like you said,
Hey, I don't have it quite as neat as you do. No, I'm guessing you guys might.
Gentlemen looking for a block like